Hi, good morning, friends. I am going to read the next question. The question is, write a short note on the difference between norm referenced and criterion referenced evaluation. It was asked in December 2009. Or explain the concepts of norm referenced and criterion referenced evaluation. What are the similarities and differences between them? It was asked in December 2009. Or write note on norm referenced and criterion referenced test need and importance. It was asked in June 2009. Or write note on norm reference tests, its importance and use. It was asked in June 2008. So like earlier questions, I will at first read all of them and then I will explain one by one. Answer. Norm reference tests or NRTs compare examinees' performance to that of other examinees. Standardized examinations such as the SAT are norm reference tests. The goal is to rank the set of examinees so that decisions about their opportunity for success, that is college entrance, can be made. Criterion reference tests or CRTs differ in that each examinee's performance is compared to a predefined set of criteria or standards. The goal with these tests is to determine whether or not the candidate has the demonstrated mastery of a certain skill or set of skills. These results are usually pass or fail and are used in making decisions about job entry, certification, or licensure. A national board medical exam is an example of a CRT. Either the examinee has the skill to practice the profession, in which case he or she has licensed, or does not. These terms relate to how the results of an assessment are presented. Criterion referenced means the test relates to some sort of established unit of measure. DORA is criterion referenced because it reports in grade level equivalent scores. For example, John's phonics skills are low 4th grade level. Norm referenced is a percentage ranking compared to an average population. For example, Johnny is at 45th percentile. This means if we look 100 students and rank them from top to bottom, Johnny would be 45 from the bottom. So higher is better. Average is 50. Most state tests, which are accountability tests, are norm referenced. Because these two types of tests have fundamentally different purposes, it is not surprising that they are constructed differently and evaluated differently. Criterion reference tests place a primary focus on the content and what is being measured. Norm reference tests are also concerned about what is being measured, but the degree of concern is less, since the domain of content is not the primary focus for a score interpretation. In norm reference test development, item selection, beyond the requirement that items meet the content specifications, is driven by item statistics. Items are needed that are not too difficult or too easy, and that are highly discriminating. These are the types of items that contribute most to a score spread and enhance test score reliability and validity. With criterion reference test development, extensive efforts go into ensuring content validity. Item statistics play less a role in item selection, though highly discriminating items are still greatly valued, and sometimes item statistics are used to select items that maximize the discriminating power of a test at the performance standards of interest on the test score scale. Some scholars have argued that there is little difference between norm reference tests and criterion reference tests, but this is not true. A good norm reference test is one that will result in a wide distribution of scores on the construct being measured by the test. Without a score variability, reliable and valid comparisons of candidates cannot be made. A good criterion reference test will permit content referenced interpretations, and this means that the content domain to which scores are referenced must be very clearly defined. Each type of test can serve the other main purpose, norm referenced versus criterion referenced interpretations, but this secondary use will never be optimal. For example, since criterion reference tests are not constructed to maximize score variability, their use in comparing candidates may be far from optimal if the test scores that are produced from the test administration are relatively similar. Next is the reliability and validity assessment. Because the purpose of a criterion reference test is quite different from that of a norm reference test, it should not be surprising to find that the approaches used for reliability and validity assessment are different too. With criterion reference tests, scores are often used to sort candidates into performance categories. Consistency of scores over parallel administrations becomes less central than consistency of classifications of candidates to performance categories over parallel administrations. Variation in candidate scores is not so important if candidates are still assigned to the same performance category. Therefore, it has been common to define reliability for a criterion reference test as the extent to which performance classifications are consistent over parallel form administrations. For example, it might be determined that 80% of the candidates are classified in the same way by parallel forms of a criterion reference test administered with little or no instruction in between test administrations. This is similar to parallel form reliability for a norm reference test, except the focus with criterion reference tests is on the decisions rather than the scores. Because parallel form administrations of criterion reference tests are rarely practical, over the years methods have been developed to obtain single administration estimates of decision consistency that are analogs to the use of the corrected split half reliability estimates with norm reference tests. With criterion reference tests, the focus of validity investigations is on 1. The match between the content of the test item and the knowledge or skill that they are intended to measure, and 2. The match between the collection of test items and what they measure and the domain of content that the tests are expected to measure. The alignment of the content of the test to the domain of content that is to be assessed is called content validity evidence. This term is well known in testing practices. Many criterion reference tests are constructed to assess higher level thinking and writing skills, such as problem solving and critical reasoning. Demonstrating that the tasks in a test are actually assessing the intended higher level skill is important, and this involves judgments and the collection of empirical evidence. So construct validity evidence too becomes crucial in the process of evaluating a criterion reference test. Setting performance standards. Probably the most difficult and controversial part of Criterion-Referenced testing is setting the performance standards, that is, determining the points on the score scale for separating candidates into performance categories such as passers and failures. The challenges are great because with criterion-referenced tests in education, it is common on state and national assessments to separate candidates into not just two performance categories, but more commonly 3, 4, or even 5 performance categories. With 4 performance categories, these categories are often called failing, basic, proficient, and advanced. What makes the setting of performance standards or criterion-referenced tests controversial is that process itself is highly judgmental, and the implications are far-reaching. Candidates who fail the test may be denied a high school diploma or a license to practice in the profession they trained for. Teachers and administrators can lose their jobs if a student's test performance does not meet the performance standards. Perception of the quality of education in a state can assign to the failing or basic performance categories. With international assessments such as Trends in Mathematics and Science Study (TIMSS), the educational reputations of countries are based on criterion-referenced test performance. The process of setting performance standards proceeds through many steps. First, it is common to set a policy about the composition of the panel that will set the performance standards. Here, decisions about the demographic makeup of the panel, such as gender, ethnicity, years of experience, geographical distribution role, that is, teachers, administrators, curriculum specialists, parents, are usually considered, as well as other factors. Then a plan is put in place to draw a representative panel to meet the specifications. Another big decision concerns the choice of a standard setting method. There are probably 10 to 20 major methods and large numbers of variations of each. The methods include Enghoff, Abel, Needles-K, contrasting groups, borderline groups, direct consensus, item cluster, booklet selection, extended Enghoff, bookmark, and more. Prior to the meeting of the panel to set the performance standards, it is common for a different panel to prepare performance category descriptions. These descriptions lay out for the standard setting panel what it means to be a failing student, a basic student, and so on. The descriptions provide a basis for the standard setting panel to carry out its work of determining just how well candidates must perform on the test to demonstrate basic, proficient, and advanced level performance. The descriptions are also helpful in communicating what the expectations are for the students in the performance categories and at the time of score reporting. Next, the panel is brought together and the chosen method is applied to produce performance standards. A typical panel meeting often begins with a discussion of the purpose of the test and exposure to the performance category descriptions. Having the panelists take a portion or even the entire test is another activity that is included as part of the training. Then the method is introduced and practice is given prior to the panel starting on its task of setting the standards. The meeting continues and often 2 to 3 days are needed for the panelists to work through the method and related discussions until a final recommended set of performance standards is produced. The validity evidence is compiled about the process and the panelists' impressions of it. A technical manual is often written and then all of the information is forwarded to a board for setting the final performance standards for the Criterion-Referenced Test. If multiple tests are involved, that is mathematics, reading, and science tests are at several grade levels, the task of making the complete set of performance standards across subjects and grades consistent or coherent is especially challenging. Criterion-referenced tests are used in many ways. Classroom teachers use them to monitor a student performance in their day-to-day activities. States find them useful for evaluating a student's performance and generating educational accountability information at the classroom, school, district, and state levels. The tests are based on the curricula, and the results provide a basis for determining how much is being learned by students and how well the educational system is producing desired results. Criterion-referenced tests are also used in training programs to assess learning. Typically, pre-test, post-test designs with the parallel forms of criterion-referenced tests are used. Finally, criterion-referenced tests are used in the credentialing field to determine persons qualified to receive a license or certificate. There are hundreds of credentialing agencies in the United States that are using criterion-referenced tests to make pass-fail credentialing decisions. Now this question reading is over. Now in the next video I will explain the meaning of this question. Okay, bye then, take care of.